that they will have the capability to hurl a nuclear missile to San Francisco or New York, it could be before, right after Obama leaves the White House.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're already far ahead and talking about reducing, what are those things called? I was just looking at it. Anyway, those tubes or whatever they're called, the number of them, and they were saying that by reducing them, it would slow down their capacity to produce the nuclear weapons. Yes. But that, it doesn't matter. So what if they're reduced from 10,000 to 15,000 to 5,000 or 6,000 or whatever the exact number was to be? That doesn't stop anything. It slows it down just a little bit because they still have the materials necessary to keep working.
Right.
And for the American people, and I get what you're saying when you said about how we don't want to be involved in war and things of that nature. Well, what we should be doing is reminding people about how history has a funny way of repeating itself. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't that long ago that, 2 major buildings were knocked down along with other sub-buildings around it, and that it is going to happen again. It's going to be allowed to happen again in Chicago, I believe it's Chicago, and it's just going to happen. And I hate to say that you're right. I wish I could say, John, you're wrong. But the American people are even dumber than they were during the days of the Second World War. So we've got to be hit hard again. Thank God it'll be in a liberal bastion, so I won't care that much. And
it's still an American. It's still an American city, though. Come on.
It's still an American city, but not by attitude. They don't.
Well, I understand, but this is just but that's still That's still Americans, and
okay,
I
got to interrupt you. I got to interrupt everybody here because we're over time here. We got to go to a break here. We're going to continue this. I got Ron Edwards from the Edwards Notebook. Remember where you're at, Ron. We'll pick this up right where we left off at. Stay tuned.
I have a response,
Yeah, stay with us, guys. Right now it's time for Moments of Madness. We'll be right back. Stay on Moments of Madness. With the recent signing into law of Indiana Senate Bill 101, legislatively known as the Senate Enrolled Act, National Journal writer Ronald Breinstein best summed up the left's latest desperate attempt to ensure Obama's third term by proxy in 2016. The objective behind his summation is the left's need to retain at least a pen and a phone in the White House that can continue to circumvent the separation of powers should they not recapture Congress through fundraising, vote pandering, redistricting, and fraud. Brownstein pens, with the Indiana religious freedom law, Pence detonated what could be the biggest landmine facing his party in 2016, the sense that the GOP wants to reverse the cultural and demographic changes relentlessly remaking America. Brownstein reiterates, as only a media parrot can, that once again right-wing extremist factions, otherwise known as Christian conservatives, have succeeded in deviously enlisting yet another tepid establishment Republican in their quest to reinitiate the days of the Inquisition in order to thwart our first half-white president's bid to finish fundamentally transforming the United States of America. Using a 22-year-old federal law initially written by Democrat Senator Chuck Schumer and signed into law by Bill Clinton that was later diluted by the Supreme Court ruling in 1997 as an overreach into state sovereignty, several states have passed their own versions of the Religious Freedom and Restoration Act, which decrees people have a civil right to refuse to participate in activities that go against their own religious beliefs. Indiana has been the latest of 22 states to do this. Utilizing the race card as a premise from which the civil rights movement has been redefined to include anything anyone can dream up as a right, the left has introduced the war on women, which demands the right to murder unborn children and receive free birth control, all on the taxpayer dime, and the war on economic injustice, in which the wealth disparity theme has been embraced under Obama's creative destruction agenda, also known as wealth redistribution or Keynesian economics, and expanded and repackaged as new and improved by proclaiming opportunity and entitlement means the same thing. This has not been enough to once and for all bring about the left's vision of a utopian collective. The war on Christianity is the left's last leg of its progressive platform. It is a campaign designed to further redefine and rewrite American heritage and history by assigning Christian influence in government as the primary reason we are a nation of greedy, oppressing haters rather than generous, compassionate liberators. forcing private sector enterprises to not only tolerate but condone and accept silently the immoral onslaught orchestrated by the left and subjected upon society by the homosexual activist community, we are now seeing the signs of political genocide equivalent to the early days of the Holocaust in Germany. Businesses are being marked for protests and boycotted, while their owners and CEOs are being tried and politically ostracized in the mock court of public opinion by ideological vigilantes. There is much more to the DNC's dislike of Israel than just its appeasement of Islam or its sympathy towards Palestine. Traditional Christianity stands in the way as to how a remade America should look, and it needs to be either redefined or removed. Barack Obama himself hides behind a newly fabricated shield of pseudo-Christianity, one that equates wealth redistribution and immoral tolerance as the essential elements of the gospel proclaimed by a black Jesus, while the rest of the world proclaims rainbows or validation that God is gay. Well, let us not forget another man who used this same facade as a means to an end. Hitler touted himself a Christian in the early days of his campaign. He, too, later perverted his doctrine to fit his ideological belief Jews were a problem that needed a final solution. Such it is today in regard to Christianity. Christianity remains the last barrier to tyrannical rule. It is the last reminder of moral conscience. It is the last voice that can warn of pending destruction and exile into the wilderness of enslavement. In the minds of the godless, Christianity must be eradicated in the same way Judaism was in Germany. Unfortunately, the church, for whatever reason, has spent too much time huddled within its own walls, believing if it just leaves the godless alone, they will leave it alone. Well, that isn't going to happen. It is time Christians acknowledge this. It is time to proclaim our own jihad, our own holy war in the name of Christian injustice. After all, if God is really for us, who can stand against us? What weapon formed against us can prosper? Of course, this means picking up the most effective weapon we have and wielding it. That weapon is our vote. It is time. What God has put together, let no man tear asunder. This is John Matthews for Moments of Madness. Hey, we're back. Right here on the Conservative Syndicate. I want to let you know the archives of the show will be up tonight, about an hour and a half from now. You can go to theconservativesyndicate.net and pick up tonight's show if you missed part of it, or if you want to re-listen to it, share it with anybody, whatever you want to do with it, or any of our archives for that matter. Just go to theconservativesyndicate.net. And you can also pick up blog sites. We have links over to Ron Edwards' site, the edwardsnotebook.com, I believe it is. The Dryer Report with Joe Hakos, our co-host, is with us also tonight. All that stuff is there. Anything you want to know about the Conservative Syndicate, you can find there. So that's the conservativesyndicate.net. I've got Ron Edwards here. I left you. I had to interrupt you mid-thought there. I hope you were able to retain it. I'm not always able to do that. Yes. I'm not always able to retain my thoughts, but you were making a point there, Ron. Why don't you pick up where you left off?
Yes, and before I make that point, I've got to make another point. It's theronedwards.com. That's the website.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No problem.
I was trying to call it off the top. I've got the link there. I was just trying to call it off the top of my head. I just...
Yeah. And by the way, hello, Joe. You were mentioning, Joe, that it's an American city, and I'm well aware of that. Trust me. In another life, I used to visit the beautiful streets and wonderful people of Chicago, or I've walked the magnificent Nile and the Lakeshore Drive and the North End neighborhoods where the funky clubs and everything like that, and wonderful, friendly people. But here's the thing. You reap what you sow, and what you give into, that's what you get. Mm-hmm. And what I'm talking about, I'm coming from a philosophical point of view, is that if you have a population such as that in Chicago, or whether it's Detroit or whatever, all you have to do is go to those cities and you see them reaping the rewards of their thought processes. And I hate to say this because it sickens me to even know it, but it is the truth, and it must be reversed through education. And that is a huge percentage of many of our American cities, whether it's Chicagoland, whether it's San Francisco, whether it's the bulk of Detroit, these people have an attitude and a philosophical base that is an anathema to anything that is anything near patriotic or pro-American. Their attitude is that anything that is against America, They're very open-minded. They just gravitate towards that. That's why black people, the majority of them, kiss the backsides of Muslims who hate them more than any other segment of people on earth. And so in that vein, that's what I mean. It's not my desire for Chicago to get hit, but it is. And so when you lay yourself vulnerable, open to your enemies, like Neville Chamberlain laid England vulnerable to Hitler, they got hit by V-1 rockets. And so what I'm saying, basically a warning, and hopefully people will turn from their stupid ways and not have to reap those rewards of being stupid and not only kissing the backsides of our enemies and, in lockstep with the president, but also stop turning their own backsides up to be kicked. And that is what these population centers, the populations of these cities are doing. And that does not make our enemies like them. It only lets our enemies know, hey, they're stupid and weak. We're going to bomb those Americans. We're going to hit them. And that's the only thing I'm trying to say here. It is not out of any pleasure. It is not out of any joy that I say these things. But these things have to be said. It has to be recognized if there is that chance that I believe that that America can be rescued from her stupidity. And trust me, a city is nothing more than a reflection of its people. And when a city like Chicago, like Detroit, lays itself open like a virgin to the likes of the Muslim population that wants to wipe them out, the Muslims are going to follow through if they're allowed. And that's where I'm coming from. Yes, I understand it's an American city, but we have to be aware of the mentality of these American cities so that maybe other cities won't be hit, other cities, other Americans will wake up, and we won't end up with another one like Obama in the White House in 2016 or a Democrat light, and this continues to go downhill. And we need to shake the feet of our representatives as well, because we did put a Republican majority in office, and look what they're doing. They're grabbing their ankles too. Bohica, here it comes again, as the Indians would say. So that's where I'm coming from, Joe. It's not, I'm well aware it's an American city, but it's like, hey, wake up, folks.
I got you. Yeah, I'm with you. I know what you're saying. I just, I guess I just yearn for the days when Americans were Americans and we're all banded together and we can say whatever we want about our fellow Americans. Don't let no one mess with us. It's
Amen.
Like
Amen.
your brother.
And you and me both. I mean, I'm there with you. And it's because I am there with you that I say the things that I say. And maybe sometimes people say that I come across a little strident or whatever, but it's because I'm very concerned. And yet I say these things with a degree of optimism that America as a whole, I think she's going to have to be hit again in a major city, which will, maybe Chicago, but overall America will be rescued from her own present stupor. But that's where we're at, my friend. And I don't know if you've ever been to Detroit. If you visit Detroit or cities like that, there are not many cities like Detroit. I mean, there's only one Detroit, trust me. But if you ever visit it, it'll really hit home. Wow. Oh my God. If this can happen all over the country. And this is what Obama wants to do. I said this 2 years before Obama was elected on my commentary. They want to do to America what was done to Detroit, not just economically, not just morally, but even aesthetically. Just crumble us. They don't have to blow us up, but just if we lose our spirit, as the American people have done in many of our great cities, if we lose that patriotism, if we lose that what you talked about, Joe, that we're all Americans, and yeah, you can say what you want, the enemies, but yet we're all Americans. A lot of Americans, and I've met them, I've discussed with them, on talk shows locally here. they don't have that unity. They've been brainwashed in these schools, especially